Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to call the Finance Committee to order. As we all know, the Finance Committee has 20 days to review the budget officer's tentative budget and make a recommendation to the full board. So I thought under what we should do is we should start with, obviously, with the budget officer who created the document, and let him give us an overview, and then we can go through the departments, and Sean, if you want, you can just highlight some of the major issues that you encountered. And then what we can do is we can either take questions as we think of them, or if you write them down, we can do it at the end. All right. So, Sean.
Just to give you an idea of where I started from, with all the department requests, the total budget appropriations was up over $4.5 million over last year's budget. The revenues were up about $2.2 million. So overall, based on the department requests, I started with a budget that was about $2.3 million over last year's budget. The tentative, where I presented the tentative, the appropriations are up $3 million, the revenues up $2 million, so it's about a difference of $1 million more than the 2013 budget. Like I said, where my thinking was trying to get the budget to about where, at the level we were in 13. A number of departments did ask for some new positions and/or upgrades. In my budget, none of them were granted. I would get from the board if they feel that the positions are needed or the upgrades are legitimate. The budget stands at a 2% increase, and that's using $2.3 million general fund balance, which is higher than I would have liked to use. We'll discuss that later. Also in this budget, like I said, there were some departments that had some very large requests. There were a number of vehicles asked for. I kind of, with the departments that asked for a number of vehicles, I met them halfway with their request for vehicles. There were a number of requests for software and hardware purchases. We'll have a discussion about that. Like I said, for the most part, the hardware that I did leave in was mostly all PCs that individual departments asked for. Much of the software that was asked for, I did back out. That believes that there needs to be further discussion between departments. Another big chunk that is in the budget is a situation discussion with the board. I did put the funding in the budget for the FMCC capital plan. That's $200,000. That is in the budget. It's something the board could have discussions about of whether it's something down the line we might want to take out and possibly buy. Like I said, with the exception of a few departments, like I said, most of the departments did hold the line and only had very minimal increases to their budget. I will say I will correct myself. There is one new position in the budget, and that's in the public defender's office. We were awarded a 3-year grant for a position, and if you were to look, that's on page 53. The position you're asking for is an investigator/legal assistant. It's a $37,000 grant. That covers the salary and the benefits, including quite the retirement. Well, other than that, I'm open to any questions. I do have a handout. There are a few questions. There are some corrections that need to be, and I want to just to let you know that there's a typographical error in the data processing department on page 22 and 23. The line under printing, they requested $0 and $8,600 for that. Like I said, I do have a draft resolution for the corrections. The same thing with their office supplies on page 23. They requested 16,400, and it was only 16 after. And also in public health, when they break out the salaries for the grants, and the number of the positions, the total salary listed under the public health. I'm going to pass these around for, these are corrections that should be done with it. To the tentative.
Yeah.
Got extras?
Yeah. Here. Here. Pretty good.
Yes. In essence, what this resolution does is actually almost $78,000 benefit to the county. The only thing that I think the board should consider is that if there is further reductions in the budget or increased revenue in the budget, I think they should consider reducing the usage of fund balance as opposed to reducing the revenues as being proposed.
Yeah, go ahead, if it relates, yeah.
Speaking of that, as of right now, what would you estimate the fund balance as?
Based on the, you'll be getting copies as soon as I get the bound copies from the auditor. The year-end 2012 unassigned fund balance came back at $7.397 million. That's the audited number for the unassigned fund.
Seven what?
7.397.
Is that with your 2 out or 2 in?
That's with the two.
President, you already taken the 2 out, but we still have 7, or do we already have now 5?
That's not taking that 2.3 out. Like I said, if you use all the fund balance that was appropriated this year,
Excuse me.
you're looking at actually 1.3 less than that. Because you take out the amount that you appropriated last year.
I see you put $150,000 worth for sales tax. Are you satisfied with that?
Based on the way it's going, and sales tax is up slightly, it's not a windfall for the town. We are going to probably reach that level.
Okay, just so that we just don't jump around, can we go from first department to the,
And like I said, I
Yeah.
know,
pick your,
just it was based on, like I said, we did, me and, well, the chairman and I and a couple others did sit down and we had a brief discussion about the county exec's budget. Pretty much what we did with the county exec is made a bare bones budget. Like I said, potentially, there's definitely going to have to probably be some changes with that budget.
All right, page 1, you have safety officer 0. You just agreed to put 11.
Just a clarification on that, this was printed before that.
I know, I'm just saying that's got to be adjusted. Correct or not correct? We agreed. No.
And like I said, I want to go through anything.
Sean, can you put that on that list of,
Corrections?
yeah,
Another question.
since it's already known? Okay, we go.
On page 3, there's under 1120 here, it looks like 1340, you have a deputy budget officer for 5. What was that?
Like I said, and this is a discussion I've had with a number of other counties. Many other counties that have either administrators or executives do have some type of deputy. In some cases, it is a treasurer. In other cases, it's an appointed position by the executive administrator. And those, the ones that I've
Sean, in the revenues, there's a new revenue. It says refuse and garbage charges. And I couldn't find it in the backup, so.
Okay, that's a discussion I had with the chairman, because based on the post-closure agreement, even though most of it is going away, we still have those post-closure expenses. And talking with John, we're going to have to build in some type of revenue, whether it's through the tip fee, or that we have to charge to pay for this post-closure account. Whether it comes from the other counties, their share, or whether we charge through some type of tip fee. That's why I have no backup, because it was just a general discussion I had with the chairman. And he might be able to give a better clarification.
Once we have an idea of which direction we're going to take our solid waste in Montgomery County, then you're going to have to establish a budget that reflects that. In order to cover the post-closure fees, you're going to have to pay them lump sum. If you're going to operate transfer stations, or if you're going to contract that out, hopefully there will be a revenue generated from that to cover that post-closure cost. But we don't know where we're going with that yet, so it's kind of hard to put something in the budget. We need to have a solid direction.
And just on a side note, like I said, there is an offsetting expense.
I see the offsetting expense. It's just that we currently do it through tipping fee.
Correct.
And add on to the tipping fee.
But I'm not sure you're going to be able to do that with MOSA after the first of the year, depending on the home rule request to dissolve MOSA, depending upon the authority budget office. You may not be able to deduct that from your tip or your tip fee that MOSA charges at the gate for the first 4 months, because they will officially be done as of the 1st of May. So there are a lot of questions that are still out there that are unanswered as far as that. I'm not sure that we will be able to do the tip fee method with MOSA. We may have to pay them lump sum fee for the post-closure costs. And that is right around $177,000 if their AER holds true. Annual engineer.
Bill? That's it? Bill?
I was just trying to, I think I know where the chairman's going, just trying to collect the post-closure costs, and that's why you're showing the revenue. But if you're gonna show a revenue, wouldn't you look at your operational costs as well, or is it too soon to even plug that in?
Well, that discussion, hopefully we can have something along that line at the next General Services Committee to try to establish what direction we may be going in. Because obviously we have 3 options.
I'm more in line with Bill. I think if you're going to, if we're going to get into the solid waste business, then it should be basically an enterprise fund, separate and apart. Sean?
Could be. Depends on what avenue you take. If you're gonna run it as a county department, then probably it would be an enterprise fund. If you decide to possibly either privatize it or lease arrangement where probably be just as easy to run it through general fund.
That's going to bring up a discussion of fairness to, when you get into a user fee of like solid waste, does some municipality that doesn't use it understand they may have used the landfills and may be subject to post-closure, but if they're not using facilities, do they pay for it anyway? I mean, there should be this whole discussion about solid waste and how it's going to be handled. And we only have two,
And
we
like I
got
said,
2 months.
a lot of these answers really you have to be determined which way we're going first, before you can give a concrete answer of, well, where the budget's gotta go.
Okay, no,
If you don't at least build in, like, say, 6 months of operational costs, I mean, what happens if the county does operate for that half a year?
You need 8 months of that.
You've got no money because you're gonna spend down your fund balance when you pass this budget. So you could find yourself bare naked, unless you go out and borrow the money. Am I right or wrong?
Well, obviously, if you're gonna run it, you're gonna be generating revenue through the tip fee.
Still have that
So
operational.
exactly, you're gonna have operational, and you're gonna have costs of transporting and disposing of the waste as well. So there are a lot of different aspects of that that need to be discussed and worked out before we can really put anything concrete in the budget.
okay, in the supervisor's budget, do you have any more questions? Yeah, Michael?
I see that the tuition, we're up 50. Is there a specific reason for that?
Tuition.
You're in the treasurer's budget now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I jumped. Yeah, I would have more comment there. I would move to increase the office for the aging 6,000, bring it to 220. As he requested that. It's on page 4.
So all the outside agencies basically that they asked for more, you cut them back then?
Like I said, what I did with the outside agencies, I left Cornell the same. What I did with the other two is pretty much, because we're within a 2% cap, I roughly raised them about 2%. That's why you're seeing a slight increase to those agencies.
But basically,
Like I said, I
they
didn't
basically
give
stay with
them
them.
what they actually requested.
Tom, you had your hand up?
I just heard Michael say that he wanted to raise the 6,000 or something.
Yeah, he requested 220. I read everything he put in there. I visited them last year. I had a lot of talk with those people down there. I think that's quite reasonable. I thought it was reasonable at 220. Last year, if you remember, we made an adjustment of 8 as we went into the year. So why don't we just give them 6?
They're gonna be here one night this week, so.
Well, I guess to my point, what I was trying to make was I'm trying to figure out from tonight if we're moving
We're not
to do
moving
these
it.
things.
Oh,
or-
okay.
We're not, the idea was to get the presentation from Sean, get an idea of what
We're
Sean
putting
did.
us together to move the recommendation. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, I just want to know how we're working it today.
Right, I don't think anybody's opposed to anything at this point. It's just the idea is to find out what this tentative budget is about, so that we understand going forward when we talk to the other agencies. All right? Was there anything else in the supervisor's budget that stuck out at you?
Excuse me.
As long as everybody knows that it's costing us more money with this government new charter
You got cold?
a little bit.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Pardon?
What'd you say before that?
I said, as long as you look at this thing, and it should be pointed out that there's $95,000 for the new legislators, another $85,000 for the county executive, another $50,000 for confidential secretary. These things should be brought out, fairly quick, so that people know. I'm just voicing the opinion
No.
for the public to know what the new charter entails.
Yeah, John?
Just to give you an idea of what we did as far as the executive and the legislature, we basically split the personnel that we currently have in place. Clerk of the board obviously will stay with the legislature, and then the other position
we put in for the county exec was confidential secretary.
Correct.
There's currently a schedule, a non-bargaining schedule that does have a
Okay.
base salary for a
Now I
county
see it,
exec.
I see it. Thank you.
That's where that's at.
Okay.
Okay. Sean, emergency management, anything that sticks out in the,
No, we asked for phenomenal increases, I did cut back some.
yeah, it looks like they're less than $1,000 higher than they were in 13. Okay. With the fire service, there really wasn't much there. You wanna go into the treasurer's budget? Okay, all right, yeah.
Just to, like I said, that, I'm gonna answer Mike's question about the college tuition. What this line is, for those students that go to outside community colleges, we have to pay for their tuition. The reason for the increase is the last couple of years, there was no local requirement for those students attending Schenectady County Community College. So now, the county is required to contribute. We get a schedule every year, we report that to the board. That's about $1,000 per student. Last year, we had a little over 100 students get certificates for Schenectady. So the 50 is maybe a little more conservative.
And we've even seen a few students go to modeling school. Okay.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's another, and that's a statewide issue. The county is required to supplement those students that attend the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. And the cost per county is $10,000 per student. Like I said, luckily, we only have one or two. Some of the downstate community or counties are really facing a problem where they have upwards of 50 to 100 students attending that college.
Who wrote that law?
New York State. And the issue there is with this discharge back was supposed to be for community college and 2-year programs. The big controversy now is Fashion Institute offers a 4-year program, and counties are still on the required to support even those students pursuing a 4-year program. Like I said, I would say we're fortunate because the most I've ever seen in a year is I think like 3 students in the school.
Are you saying we should up it?
I'm saying we're leaving. I'm comfortable right now leaving it as it is until I can get a good picture of where the fall semester stands.
Okay, anyone else got any questions on the treasurer's budget?
Do you want to discuss the college at 200,000?
Yeah, you can.
Is he going to do work immediately? I mean, he made a great presentation here.
Like I said, the 200,000 is definitely going to be used next year.
Okay.
As they start projects, they'll start building on, giving us a portion. I don't know what their construction schedule is or what their schedule is for as far as completing the work, but based on the presentation that they did, is they're expecting their set work, which is going to be $200,000 contribution from Montgomery next year.
Sean, I think we had a projected date of when the last of the higher retirement payments would be.
This, like I said, the bill we're getting in, they call it the 2014 bill, will be the highest bill. Next year's bill for 2000, they're calling it, the 14 bill, which comes out and we pay in December of this year,
Right.
will be the highest bill that's out there. The 15 bill will start to go down slowly.
Okay. I didn't want to jump it, I just wanted to get it in perspective of when we might see.
We'll start to see some relief for the 2015 budget. But like I said, it's going to be a very gradual decrease as we go. And like I said, unfortunately, like I said, with the unknowns of with the federal government shutting down, if there is potentially another recession, that could have an effect on retirement.
Any other questions in the treasury budget?
You did mention that, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
you did mention that we could possibly bond that, too, right?
Yes, that's a possibility that's.
So that would be, right? What would your recommendation be?
Well, the thing is, I would say it would depend on if we plan on doing, other projects. Because it really doesn't make sense to bond more than $200,000 to go through a whole
No, but I'm
bond
saying
issue.
that's one item. I mean, if we
Right.
keep track of all the items that are in here, we may want to bond all of them.
Like I said, that's the only really capital expense that's in the budget
That's
is
it.
this, like I said, I don't know if when we have a discussion with Paul and DPW, if he's got a plan for next year, he would be able to give that to us, because my feeling, like I said, if you're only going to bond, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go through a whole bond issue for only $20,000.
Any other questions, Butch, okay? All right, John?
Are you comfortable that you're gonna make that $35,000 on interest and earnings?
I think right now that may be on the high side. I just did talk to one of our bankers. They're cautiously optimistic that things may turn around in the banking industry, because they're hurting until maybe half a year, maybe halfway through the year. A slight improvement, not no groundbreaking. Because right now, like I said, that probably is on the higher side. Nature.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea, like I said, years ago, when the markets were good, that number was as high as 750,000.
Disappeared in our budget too. Pension took its place.
Okay, real property tax.
Their budget, well, like I said, if you wanted to, if we'll go through, this is one of the departments that did ask for an employee upgrade, and we take it out. By taking that out for budget, actually is less than it was for the current year.
Any
I
questions?
discussed that with her, and I normally vote on for that. I understand what the girl does. Very few people are gonna want that job. I understand what she has to do for the new boss, et cetera. That's fair.
But just to clarify, Mike, that if that's something, that would have to be put back in, because like I said,
Yeah, I know, I've got it.
previously said that all departments that ask for upgrades or new positions, like they revert them back to their old position and do that.
All right? Got an understanding of that? County clerk?
Again, like I said, I'm sure when you meet with her, she'll let you know. Like I said, this was another department that did ask for a couple of positions. You'll see that in your budget request. For department requests, I did take those requests out.
than those two, there wasn't any other. I don't see another, I don't think there was another major change in there.
No.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
I have a question for both you and Sean together.
No, let him take,
My question is that in this budget, are the negotiations or raises or anything else put into all of this now or no? Or
No.
there's no provisions for any in this tentative budget?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Like I said, in part of, like I said, you would see, actually, if you go back to, in the supervisor's budget, one of the items that was discussed, and I think it's on the low side, is the contingency account.
Is
We
it
did
much?
increase it from 150 to 200. Contingent account. I do believe that number is low. Based on the past history that the county has been using contingency.
Well, that's the contingency, but, I mean, we could get it with,
Like I said, it's almost, it would be impossible to put the individual salaries with the increase because you don't know what the bargaining units are going to do with their salaries.
No,
Build in a
I
3%
know
or
we don't
2%
know.
or 1% increase. If you
Just
were
so
to
it's
do that,
clear.
you would have to put it somewhere where, you wouldn't be putting it in the individual salaries.
You'd
You
have
would
to
put it in a
someplace
contingent
else.
or
Right.
a line for, set aside for raises or.
Okay. Just so that everybody knows that there's nothing in this thing.
okay, so that's what you asked, if there was any money in there for raises.
I mean, yeah.
Okay,
No,
any other questions on county clerk?
never.
Okay, county attorney, I see that there was no change. Let's see, let's go through personnel, because it's probably the second largest budget.
Really, other than, like I said, other than the fringe benefits, the budget pretty much, stayed the same. Probably, like I said, the single-handed, probably the biggest increase is, like I said, because is health insurance.
Okay, because that, yes.
Also, I see that workers' comp went up over 100, is there a reason for that?
Based on, well, like I said, I believe that was based on the new, schedule you guys adopted a month or two ago. That set the new amounts for all municipalities, so that was part of that proposal too.
Okay, any questions? Board of Elections? Yeah, Michael?
Maybe I'm reading this wrong. But I see under her election, data clerk part-time or whatever, did they ask for an increase or is that something automatic that they get?
That's something they automatically get because it's a longevity.
Okay, I didn't know that, so this is wrong. Okay. And I see he asked for temporary employees, 74, what would that be? Is that the
That's for the
people,
poll
the
workers.
poll workers? the
Like
poll
I
people?
said, he asked for 74 with the thinking that there might be 3 elections next year. So the reason I cut it is, like I said, I can't think of anything right off for that would require 3 elections. Well, like I said, I'm sure he's gonna have a better explanation than I.
You know, so Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, Tommy?
We just passed a resolution for these groups, outside organization recruiters. Is that within the part-time temporary, or am I missing a line here?
No, like I said, if that goes through, I don't know what type of money. Paying those outside people would be paid out of the 443. It would be a miscellaneous supported service for that department. I don't know what kind of money he's talking about with contracting with these municipal or these civic organizations.
Oh, 4438. Well, we ought to find that out, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
And like I said, if you look at the history of that 4438, that's where it used to pay everybody out. But it was determined that the IRS requires that election workers should be employees. That's why we have to move them all the temporary.
Okay, you all set? Oh,
Yeah, just a quick question on that. On the Board of Elections deal, a lot of that is charged back to the town, correct?
Yes.
So that 55,000, that 7,500 we're talking about, that's mostly all, that's
Yes.
the city and the town. Kind of a, I guess what we call a wash with it. Yeah, well, I understand that. How the approved budget. Okay, thank you.
you all set, Larry?
Yep, I'm okay.
Michael?
That brings something, I see modified 2013 up at the top revenue, it's 140, why did it go to 105?
I believe it's a grant. He got some grant money for to have a requirements.
Okay. Public Works, which is like the buildings and grounds and anything big in here, Sean?
Not really on this side of the budget.
What about the shared services, the first one? It's about $80,000.
You looking?
First line revenue line, the revenue.
Actually, it's only took $300 to be adopted. It was modified to the year.
Yeah, okay, so what about the modified, there was nothing there?
I'd have to check to see with Paul what that additional modification was for. What the shared services is, that's work that's done between departments, not outside money coming. That's money that's coming from another department. Okay. As a general one. But I can, like I said, when he comes in, we can verify that very. What department says coming.
You all set? Brian?
Line 2255, buildings and grounds. Requested 20. You know what that was?
Page you want now?
Page 19.
2255. He wanted, he's looking to buy 2 new lawnmowers.
Sure.
Might be one lawnmower.
The town's bid.
Lawnmowers for the lawns.
Yeah, it's,
We annexed the jail.
I'd be glad to build on the for you in the town.
Town's doing it.
If the town would do it, that's something we could do.
He's not here.
Just expect the bill.
You're getting enough, never mind. You get too much help. It's not even a mine.
He's got in his backup that's for a 0-turn mower. It may only be for one.
All right, Brian? Anyone else? If not, data processing?
Like I said, you'll probably see, like I said, he had quite a large, well, I'll start with him. He asked for, I believe, four upgrades in one new position. Again, they were not granted my budget, so it was really a decision of the board. And the other, he asked for a pretty large chunk, for computer equipment. And I did cut that back for him.
Is that for replacement computers?
A number of things. actually, I started through top. Under line 2250, technical equipment and the printing. He was, for the press and the cutter, is looking for some type of lift system or that they could lift the machines off the floor in case of. That's under printing. Under that, he listed a whole list of items in his backup for the computer equipment, that total 72,600. I did cut that back to about 40, which is more than he got last year, a little more than he got last year.
You put in for 4 more people.
4 upgrades and 1 new position. Three upgrades and 1 new position.
On the computer equipment, is that some of that shared? I think it might have been like, because I think I had talked to, like to Real Property, I think the plotter might have been in Dana's budget.
The plotter is 9,600. I love that, 72,600. Really, if you look at the backup, on page 126, there's the backup book. It has a list of all the items that he's looking for. Servers, network equipment, power racks, tablets, the plotter, servers, laptops, desktops.
I mean, can we pinpoint the 72,600 to the 40? Is there a list like of equipment that was cut out that so everybody would know?
No, like I said, I pretty much cut them back for him to choose.
So they have to prioritize.
Yes.
Anyone else got any questions? Do you have to process it? Okay, Sheriff.
Like I said, it appears that, like I said, the sheriff did get the hardest hit with my cuts. The reason is that is he asked for the most. He did ask for 2 new deputies. Like I said, we all got a letter. I guess his plan is he wants to totally separate that process. In his request, between a number of software packages and hardware, he was asking well over $200,000 in the hardware and software. I believe it's his plan to totally separate from that process.
Why would we, why,
Go ahead.
why would we ever do that?
Like I said, I can't speak for the sheriff, but he's not, based on the letter I received, he's not happy with the service he's getting from them.
Okay, Butch?
Yes.
Like I said, I'm not speaking for the sheriff.
No, I
He can
know.
defend himself when he does his presentation.
Yeah, they can both, we're just here to talk numbers. Tommy? Butch, go ahead.
I just want to make one, if we're going to do that, I think Dan should be there too.
Yeah, he will. Not in the same room at the same time.
Why not?
Yeah, Tommy?
Jail facility and other government, I believe, is the revenue line item for board prisoner with federal inmates, right? In all the discussions I've had with the sheriff and the undersheriff, that has not derailed. It's been staying pretty steady. We've dropped that by well over 10%. Even he requested it at 700. I'm just looking for, is he telling you that the numbers are changing now?
He hasn't told me, like I said, our last, when I just went to the last NICEAC meeting, other counties have expressed the concern that, they are losing revenues as well. So I don't know if it's something that's coming down the pipe, that the feds are sending inmates elsewhere out of the state. It's not just a Montgomery County thing, but like I said, the sheriff will better know. Like I said, I left his request there, that's my understanding of what was happening pretty much statewide. It's the feds are not sending their inmates to county jails.
Yeah, that's, I realized in 12 there was, for 13 you said that it had dropped quite a bit, or it was going to drop, and that's why that budget was reduced so much there, and it actually, reflected it, I guess.
So that's something that probably we should have a discussion when he does his proposal.
That's $100,000, $110,000, $111,000 drop.
It's a $300,000, $400,000 drop from where he was a couple years ago, which was the first time he'd been up there in years. But how, not to get in between you, John, but how quick is his billing? I say that because at the end of September, what the report you sent out was he was at like 547, so 550 after 9 months. Is he a month
Like I
behind?
said, usually with the marshals, it's usually just a month lag. So September should have been paid probably through July. Maybe, depends on the timing, maybe August is there in there or not. So a month, maybe 2 at the most.
So he's
And
doing
like I said,
like,
the marshals is the majority of that.
Right.
line.
so he's doing, let's say, like 70,000 a month or whatever.
Yeah, 50, might be around
Yeah.
50.
Okay, John?
Yes, the sheriff sent a letter out via email, basically explaining why the drop. The federal government is taking a new stance, I believe, as he said, on the drug crimes, and that's why we're seeing a reduction in inmates in the jail, under the federal inmates. So that's the explanation we're putting out there.
I mean, it almost hate there'd be a correlation between, if you get less revenues, you must have less prisoners. Less prisoners would seem to require less help. That's just,
Have a run and show them.
but maybe I'm not seeing it that way.
I would just think if you see if there was an actual drop to be seen currently, I agree with it. We're not seeing the drop. Numbers are staying steady. You take a radical position of $110,000, a lot of money to say that you're not going to have. If it's staying steady, it's not. Let's drop it down.
Yeah, but if you're looking at revenues of 2012 of $1,000,007, and you're looking at us budgeting 1.2, that's $500,000 of revenues that we lost over the last couple of years. You know, when we generate additional expenses because we've taken in additional revenues, then the revenues go away. It doesn't seem that our expenses seem to disappear.
And it's not a lot, if you go to page 29, this is something that I know in discussions in the past, it's under 4421, property refuse repair. This really goes to a situation, a discussion with the board. Whose responsibility is it to maintain the buildings? Is it the individual or their buildings or their offices? The individual departments or is it DPW's? DPW does budget a lot of money for building repairs. It seems like I said, the sheriff here, he did budget, he was asking for $3,500, really didn't. In essence, he asked for its repairs to the jail. That's something, like I said, my thinking on this is repairs to the buildings really should be going through DPW. That's where all other real property repairs and maintenance goes to.
But that's a debate between him and Public Works as much as there's a debate between the sheriff's office and data processing.
Yes, I believe it's a similar situation.
Yeah.
Looks like he lets it be completely on his own, period. See you under for executive. God bless him.
All right, anybody got other questions? And you obviously can see the changes in the software, changes in equipment and the rest.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, if he's gone, if I'm looking at 4459, okay, I had that marked, and he asked for the, and I understand what Sean was saying about the 66,000 or 67,000 that he wanted. Why are we leaving in 14,000 if we're gonna stay with, if we say, stay with Dan, which he should?
The 14,000 has to do with an upgrade to the impact system which he currently is using.
Oh, okay, that's complete, okay.
It's a program that he currently has, and this is an upgrade to that. Or an update or an upgrade to that. I believe in back here, in the 30 on page, page 25, under the 4459.